Ladies and gentlemen, I'm talking to my old friend Jay Plouffe, who's in Toronto right now, but grew up outside Peterborough, Ontario. Been in the band Knifehammer for a long time, and is also one of our Spiderland Punkfest friends. The last time I talked to you, Jay, was in the side chat room during Jenna's memorial, so we might as well finish up on that. And I'll just ask you, I mean, a lot of my viewers don't know who Jenna Truelove is, but do you have any words you want to say about her? We can kind of get that out of the way now and get on to talking about Punkfest.
There's only one of Jenna Truelove. That's what I was thinking when I was thinking about writing a song about her that will be forthcoming. They say that, every cornflake is individual, but it's really true. And in this case, it's funny. It was like I'm trying to think, like when you try to call them, it's like, oh, funny things. But I mean, so many different funny things. Like one of the ones I've reflected upon lately is that, for years and years, like from a bunch of like 32 or 33 on, I basically started shaving my head and being clean shaven and being like, yes, that's how I look the youngest and the best. I've got like a shaved head and a clean shaven face. I'm all fresh. That's when I look my best. And I told that to Jen, and I was like, yeah, that's when I look best. And she was like, yeah, that's what you think. And it's kind of funny, but my girlfriend had asked, basically told me she liked facial hair and asked me, told me she wanted me to grow a beard. So I've grown facial hair in the past, since January, beginning of January. First time in 10 fucking years. And I'm actually really liking it and really liking how it shapes my face. Anna gave me
You got the Mr. T going on. Oh, look at that. That's a good background.
Yeah.
Man, that is sick. Who did that?
Anna did it, my girlfriend. So she's been getting my hair, my beard. She cuts whatever, she had the idea to do my hair
Jesus.
diamonds, and then I wanted to do the sides. And then she wanted, she decides what angle she wants to cut into my facial hair. It's like, whatever, whatever she wants, I go with, and I get to sit there and be groomed. Okay,
did you see the other night I had Minigan on and he was cooking? That looks fucking awesome.
No, I didn't know that. Oh, this is a chicken salad. Basically, my girlfriend's roommate's girlfriend is doing some catering thing to do with film production. And bringing home ridiculous amounts of leftover food that's been going to fill in their freezer and my freezer. And so I had these grilled chicken breasts. So I chopped them up, cubed them up really small, took some leftover yogurt, blended that up with the spinach ends and some garlic, and took the mortar and pestle and ground up some dirt and cumin and a bit of fennel and mixed it all together. And chopped up half of a weak, soft beet that was in the fridge. And then I just, put that on toast. I actually put it on top of my garlic and smoked mussel cream cheese spread. Butter on both sides of the bread, toasted in the oven, fried some broccoli up. Pretty fucking good. Pretty good.
Buddy. When was your first Punkfest, Jay? Tell us how did you first hear of Punkfest?
I missed the boat. I had to jump off the dock and swim along behind the boat a bit. First time I went there was May 2000. In the 90s, I was aware of it. I would see posters, 100 bands, saying there was something going on, like 100 punk bands. But like, I understood punk to be like Green Day and Rancid and The Offspring, and I was into metal. Like, I liked intense, heavy, aggressive music, so I had no interest in punk. So it was totally just like La La Land. I graduated high school in like June of '99, and in September I went on the Katimovic program, and so I did that youth exchange program. Went to over 7 months, went to 3 different parts of Canada, and I was already left leaning, but my first placement then in that program, I went to Guelph, and I ended up working at Operg Guelph. So I was working with all the radical activists on campus.
Ontario Public
Interest Group. Yeah,
when I people in BC who don't know what that is.
Yeah, so like that's when I would have been in first year university if I had gone. And so I was already to the left, and then that really radicalized me. And so then that rest of that youth trip was a lot about that stuff. And then I came back, planning to start a revolution, and was back. And then this girl Robin I knew, she like we were kind of hanging out, and she was like, "Hey, we should go to this thing." And she convinced me to go to this party. I was kind of afraid to go,
Was
but
it
we got some food.
Robin Biddle / Lake?
No, Robin Gallagher.
Oh,
She's a QAnon now. She's a
oh
QAnon
no.
person now. You can see her on Toronto. It was like, oh my god, you see the Toronto's blog to you article about like people protesting in front of that anti-masker barbecue, and who's that woman decides for the Canada's most famous anti-masker? Oh yeah, I
The
know
girl who took
exactly
you to
who that is.
Punkfest.
Jeez, actually, it's funny. It's funny how tight.
Woohoo!
What a web, Robin convinced me that we should go. So on like a Friday night, probably like May 20th, whatever, 2000, we walked down to Highway 7, the edge of town, to hitchhike to Marmora. I was already quite an experienced hitchhiker. And so we're there on the side of the road, and we're hitching, and I'm not sure if it was the first or the second ride or whatever, but this white van pulls over, this white like cargo van thing, and it's like, oh, and it's fucking Dirty Bird. And
Nice.
Dirty Bird picks us up and drives us to the party, and Glenn picks up Robin. So she's basically gone for the weekend. But I was blown away.
That was an expensive ride, buddy.
And then so there I was, get to this place. There's like all this stuff going on. I don't know. I don't think there were bands the Friday night. It was just like all these fires and meeting different people. And I don't know. I think smoking pot, drinking some beers, and it's like, we got there. It was dark, and then it was like 3:30 in the morning or so. Up, ratty, ramshackle trailer, eating breakfast cereal with some fucking freaks. And one of them is this guy who's like a journalism student from Kitchener or something like that. But it's still so connected, right as I was finishing painting, getting ready to come and talk to you, I was messaging James Webster because I'd been talking to him, and then I had gotten distracted. So Webster was actually being like, hey, I got to follow up. So I was actually just messaging with James, a junior who was in that Dirty Bird band, to be like, hey, we should hang out. Hey, maybe you can help me with my click tile floor.
In our days, the persecuted playing at Punkfest there, James from Dirty Bird was him and I were buddies. Like, we would always hang out. Even in Toronto, we hung out a couple times. James, the bass player, I mean. And
Jimmy.
Yeah, Jimmy. Then the persecuted, we played a bunch of shows with Dirty Bird. And a lot of them were set up by Keegan in places like the Trenton Arena. We're just all hell broke loose, man. He had like 10 bands booked all day. I heard about that one. Just chaos. Yeah. A bunch of fucking goofs. One that happened there, it ended with carnies fighting goofs and toilets being smashed in the arena, and Keegan's dad, who was managing our band, getting punched by carnies. All hell broke loose. You just can't have a party like that anymore. That was 1998. That was a special time.
Yeah, I've heard the stories about that shit. Sounds like wild times, man. Like by the time I got to the party, and there were some great times still going on. I mean, that May 24 stuff was quite fucking epic. But I know that there was a lot of that, that stuff in the 90s that was just over the top. To be frank, it's like, to me, it's like, and I don't know what your perspective as a parent would be, but like, the people I know.
Was like, Spring Bash 2000? Was Spring Bash 2000 in the barn? Yeah, okay.
It was in the fucking barn.
I remember that.
It was fucking crazy. I was 20. It was 2000. I was 20, and I know that a bunch of my friends, Jenna, Tola, people, sure, people who were there, such young, so much before, but from such young ages, and to me, in some ways, it's kind of mind blowing for me to try and imagine, like, how did that happen? Like, because like I just like, there's not a chance in hell my parents would have let me do that.
When I first seen Sherman, he was so young. He was like 12 or 13 or something, and he was just this metal ass little shithead. And Then
Yeah.
a couple years later, he brought his little brother who was like really young, and everyone's like, "Oh man!"
Yeah.
Like, and
Yeah.
they grew up with it.
I've heard,
I saw Sherman
you know,
shoot Johnny Oinko with a potato gun. Yeah, honest to
when he was
God,
how old? How
it
old
might have been
was he?
that. It might have been that Spring Bash 2000. If it wasn't, I don't know. It was one of those parties near then. But Sherman had brought this potato gun, and him and I went off to the back of the old stage there, and we're sitting up on the hill. And there was no one else around because everyone was up at the party. We were just shooting potato guns, shooting potatoes at the stage, and just drinking tons of beer and smoking tons of weed and just laughing and telling stories, having like a bonding time or something, right? And I don't know, like half an
Yeah.
hour, 45 minutes goes by. And it was one of these potato guns where you just take the end off and you spray the hairspray in, and all you got to do is
Yeah.
toss a potato in, and boom. And we're going down the trail, and what do we see right at the corner where all the tents, like where we all used to camp and whatnot, was
Yeah.
Johnny Oinko was fighting some guy, and Sherman, just quick as anything, fucking and then threw the potato in and he yelled, "Hey, Oinkle!" And Oinkle knew Sherman's voice, so he turned around right away and Sherman shot him right in the friggin' belly, man. So you get for fighting at Spiderland. Knock it
Well,
off.
that very well may have
Self-policing.
been.
That's what Andrew Minigan was talking about, self-policing.
So, I mean, that made. I mean, I didn't get to tell you Bree in detail though. Like the May 24 experience,
Okay.
that was a life changing experience. I got there Friday night. I met you. Drinking. Smoking some pot and drinking. It was like cool. This cool thing. Then on the Saturday, I mean, it's blurry memories, but day then into the night, and we're drinking, smoking. Probably did do some PCP, and
I believe I did
took
acid that
mushrooms.
party. I believe I did acid that party, and I recall laying like near the barn, but like off into the bushes in the trail where no one would kind of step. I like found a safe place where I figured nobody would like fall on me or step on me or piss on me because I had pissed on someone in the
Yeah,
dark before. So I didn't want that to happen to me. and and I recall like just laying there for a long time. I'm pretty sure it was that party, and then finally coming back into the barn, and all hell was breaking loose, and just be like. And I believe that was when I found out that John Bay had died as well. He was the drummer of our band, and I believe I was just laying on the ground, kind of for quite some time when I came to. Even after that, staring through the trees at magnificent bounty of stars that night and thinking about John, and so I missed a lot of that of the
yeah.
show whenever the show happened, Saturday night or something.
I remember it was like coming to Saturday night. We took mushrooms. I don't know if I did PCP. I may have done a bit of PCP, but I ate mushrooms, and then I got so drunk. I was drinking, and I was so drunk that I forgot that I ate mushrooms. And these bands were playing, or seeing all these different aggressive bands. And I remember Bloodworm playing, who were pretty like kind of maybe death metally, and there's a whole story about that guy, Vinny the Vampire. And then Dirty Bird was playing, and I'm in the pit,
I caught Dirty Bird.
not realizing I'm peaking on mushrooms.
That might have been what got me off the ground. It's like, oh shit, Dirty Bird's on. Enough of laying on the ground for 6 hours.
So there I am. I'm in the pit. Uncle Anna's is like throwing stink bombs in the crowd and shit. And I'm thinking it's me. Did I shit my pants? And I'm like freaking out. I'm like high on mushrooms and don't know it, because I'm so drunk. I forgot that I'm on mushrooms. I'm just like totally fucking like out of it. And I remember like that happening. I remember coming out, and my buddy Matt was there. Was there that weekend with other folks from Peterborough too. And he saw me, and I remember I went and I crawled away into like the tall grass, and I like crawled away to like be alone and lie in the grass for a couple of minutes. And Matt said that was the most fucked up he'd ever seen me. Off the side of the stage, we were sitting watching the bands play, and I'm sitting on this railing thing, and I actually fell fucking backwards and fell, I don't know, 4 or 5 feet backwards and landed on my back on like a concrete block, I think. Luckily didn't hurt myself terribly, but like, all this crazy shit happened. So that Then on the Sunday morning, I woke up with an incredible fucking hangover, headache, just like holy shit. And I can remember, I think someone, I don't know if it was stereo. I think someone had like in my mind, I think someone had an electric guitar and they were playing that iconic theme, like from Bedtime Story from Dago, like da da
Yeah.
da um,
Dun, 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 dun,
and I just remember
dun,
like
dun,
hearing
dun,
that
dun.
and being like, "Oh my god!" I'm so hungover, and so I was so hungover that day that like I just and blown away that I didn't drink. So I was just like, "Oh my god!" I feel like you know. And then that afternoon, that evening, the band set up again, and this band set up on stage and played, and they had this giant fucking guy playing bass and this fucking like electric guy singing, and that was a bunch of fucking goofs.
Hell yeah,
And
it was.
that is what really like hook line of it like that was what set the hook. Like there been that Saturday night, but then it was really like the power of that performance on the Sunday of seeing the bunch of fucking goofs. That is what like changed. That was what was like the like yeah the life
And that was
changing
still at the
moment.
time when Kirk was playing drums for them. Yeah, it was Big
No,
Jamie
I
on
think it was
bass.
Goose.
Oh,
I
was
think
it
Goose
then?
was on. I think it was already Goose, but it was Jamie on bass, Eric on guitar.
Then have been
Yeah,
that just shortly changed. Then yeah, Eric on
yeah.
guitar, Frenchie. Yeah, he was so good. That was such a good lineup.
Ultimate fulfillment with that thing because it was that wanting that was what blew me away and made me want to be punk and have a band. It was like seeing what Steve Goof could do and seeing like that power,
And
Um,
then years later, you got to play bass with him.
and years later, I got to play bass in the band, and in fact, and near the end of my tenure in that band, after I had basically had kind of had already basically been left the band because I'd been away so much and stuff. Something happened where I wasn't really so involved. There was stuff a mixed up lineup thing, and a lineup was pulled together where I was with Miles and Peterborough, and I got a call. They think, "Hey, you want to come down tomorrow to play with Eric and Goose?" So I went down, and me, Eric, and Goose and Steve went, chatted for 5 minutes, and then did like a fucking hour and a half fucking set, like you just go over a couple of things, and then boom, I actually got to be Jamie. Like, you know what I mean? It was like the lineup that had gotten me into the band, except that I was the one actually playing bass. So in a lot of ways, that was actually the total like the wish fulfillment, I guess. So that would have been like August 2018.
That's a beautiful memory. Good
Wonder if
story.
there's footage of that. That was a pretty fucking cool show. That was
If
that was a
you
really fun one.
if Big Jamie sees this, shout out to you, buddy. Hope you're feeling good and thinking of you.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't think I can. I don't think I can't remember the first time I met Spider. I don't remember my first actual meeting of him. It's just that there he was. Immediately there he is. This patriarch. This figure.
Back in the
Wow.
day when the big parties were on the hill there, back at the
Yeah.
stage at the amphitheater under the stars, that's how it would often be. Suddenly, Spider would just show up at some hour of the night out there, and
Yeah.
and there would be a crowd kind of sitting around him, but sometimes not. And that was always where I'd go sit. I'd always sit with Spider. So would Lucas. So then,
Yeah.
how did this relationship develop with them? Because you and Spider are pretty close.
Yeah. I got to know Spider. That weekend was like a fucking meteor in my. I don't what to say. It's like like was a major event in my life, and so like
Everything was
that was
different
like
after. When Spider would describe his first show working the lights for the Sex Pistols, and that's what he said. The next morning, I woke up and I was stark raving fucking punk. Nothing
yeah
was the same after.
yeah And that's sort of kind of like that's what happened to me. So, that was 2000. Then there was like the July 2000 fest, which was a really really rainy fest.
That was the one that was
With
out by
not
my
too
mom's
much
house.
memory. Yeah,
That was
that
the
was
one that was out by my
at
mom's house.
Bannockburn.
Yeah, and
There was I can tell you, there's a few memories about that one. Like, there was a some French person passed out with a pit, and their pit bull was there, and the dog, I think, only spoke French, but I think the dog was called Chopper Dave. Chopper Dave was a dog, but the dog didn't understand English. So I remember that. And I was there. I got there Saturday, went with old Kenny, another older guy who was like 50, old, bearded, long haired anarchist Kenny. Went out, took me out there, Hillary, and it had rained and rained. So I like got to the stage and saw fucking Fuck Knuckles, who I really liked. That they really struck me. And I saw fucking
I still listen to the album.
Out of Hand, Chris. Yeah, Out of Hand.
Chris Hills.
I saw them. Yeah, Chris Hill's band, and that was mostly it. And then Kenny like drove us home the next morning because it's been so wet and shitty. So I had no idea that apparently everyone packed up and drove to Spiders and played in Barn the next day. Maybe apparently.
Yeah, that party. So I got there. I was super high on shrooms, and then it just rained and rained and rained, and then I think for several hours because his gout was really hurting him, and the rain was really bothering Spider's body. So we just laid inside because he always had this like bed layout in his van. So Lucas, Christopher, and I probably sat there till like 3 a.m, laying with Spider, just talking, smoking joints, and staying out of the rain. And then eventually the rain kind of let up, and I said, "Let's make a break for it, Lucas." And he said, "Sure." And we walked back to my mom's house, which, I mean, Bannockburn to mom's place is like 2.5, 3 kilometers. So it only took us like hour and a half or something like that, right? It was pretty nice to be able to just walk home from the party. But yeah, that was a shitty one. Then 2001, that was the next one that I recall seeing you at. I don't think I was at Halloween because I was back in school, so I probably missed those parties.
Well, yeah,
the last two that year.
There were minutes.
But fill us in.
I went May. I went July. I went in, and I went Thanksgiving. So there would be what? So
the next spring is when I came back from Hamilton there, and then that was the one where Jenna bought the car off that kid, and
so it was 2001 when she bought the car.
Yeah, absolutely. I broke up with my girlfriend Joanna, and I was like, "Well, I got nothing to do. I'm going to Spiderland this weekend. Woo!" And then when she left the farm and hitchhiked over to Spiders, and then that was we're just sitting there. All of us were sitting there at the bend in the corner at the Little Cities area. Somehow or another, I mean, this kid kind of stumbled. We were aware something was going on, but I don't think it was until she was already driving his car that we quite fully understood the picture. And then that kid was sitting there, and we were like, "Are you letting her drive your car?" He's like, "Yeah, I sold it to her," and he was like, just ripped on, just high, and I guess his dad was a lawyer in the end, so it was a pretty uncool move on her part. But she bought the car off the kid for $50 and then drove it up and down the alley at speeds and we just sat there watching her go up and down every couple minutes go by smashing rocks and jumping.
Yeah, I remember that kid. That poor kid. He was thin. He was blonde.
Yep.
Young, blonde, thin.
17.
Jeez.
And he met Jenna hard.
Wow.
To me, that's one of the most ridiculous things, I ever saw. I've seen a lot of ridiculous things. She drove that car until it was undrivable. It's getting back there. That's why it's so nice to kind of talk to everyone and start getting some of these stories together. And then maybe once I have 100 of these interviews, I'll start putting them into a book or something like that. Right?
I do identify as a chronologger. in the sense that like I
Chronologos.
actually, a weird thing that happened there that you missed was that in Labor Day or the fall, I'm gonna say more was like the Thanksgiving bash. Two punks showed up, Tom and someone else. There was a big guy, a big guy and another guy, and these dudes had, and one was from Alberta or something, and they come to the party, and then they were going to go travel. They were each their plan was they were going to go to the one guy's hometown together, and then the other guy's hometown together. And in that time, Nick Davies came back from Montreal with a whole bunch of pure PCP. So he was like, and he had this like new super aggressive haircut. And he had this experience where I found him. He got lost in the woods or wandered off in the woods in a PCP fugue. And I found him and brought him back. And he was kind of messed up. But I remember that happening. But the significance of that is that Tom guy, these two punks, Tom and Al, say, one from the east and one from the west, and they had been at the party, and I remember Al being mad at Tom because like they were heating up a can of meat beans or something, and it just spilled over, or someone not sharing something. And there was I remember there being drama about that. But the thing about that is that my roommate at the apartment where I currently reside now, where I I've lived for almost 9 years, is from Halifax, knows that punk, Tom. He knows that guy. There's actually another extra connection, which is why
it's not a good note, is it? It's not a good note.
No, he was a friend.
Oh, okay.
It is a good note. Clayton, my roommate Clayton, traveled to Alberta with Tom. That I'm sure is that same punk who from Halifax. Like, I'm sure it's the same guy. He had gone out to like Red Deer with him and stuff. They were friends. So it's like one of those, the interconnectedness. Every spider web is interconnected. Well, those are the things that happen.
Okay. Yeah, I thought you said something fucked up happened, but so I was expecting like something like fucked up.
No. So the fun is that years later, this connection between those things. So that gets us through the 2000s. So then we're into 2001, and I think 2001, May and spring, he did the party in Marmora. It was one of the last ones. So we did that.
Because I lived on. It was later that summer that I moved into the cabin at the back of the acres for the winter, and that would be my last winter Ontario. Okay. And no party happened in Labor Day or Thanksgiving, and it was a hard time for Spider. It was a grumpy time. He was defeated a lot. At some point along the way, you started Grassroots. Grassroots was a sort of anarchist coffee shop / bar in Peterborough for many years. And you had many punk shows there, I suppose.
We opened in October 2003. We opened Grassroots. God, I mean, there's a section of my life. It's funny. It's like, I came from Punkfest wanting to like have the idea that I wanted to be setting something up for that community, like this punk community. And that definitely ended up morphing and ended up becoming into the Grassroots thing. And Spider was there at the grand opening. Spider was there, and I believe Ann was as well. I wonder what happened at the grand opening. I don't really recall if there was a band. You were gone.
Yeah, I was in Vancouver.
So there was definitely a big change. It was a big influence there. I mean, there's so many different ways discussions like this could go. I mean, so I guess Spider, unfortunately, I mean, one of the things is that I was I was so fucking chronically stoned that there's just like a giant haze, you know? Like, could I say, like, how many times was Spider and Ann at Grassroots or any particular memory? I
It was
would say
normal.
it was, I could say, I mean, we filmed Spider's scene in the film he made where he does the interview uh, with Mike, whatever, like, My Student Loan Mike, that film guy. Um, Spider's scene in that film is filmed in the parking lot of Grassroots. And we did this thing where we were like playing outside, and then like the band, like pugs are outside, and they're throwing things at the bus and everything. That happened in the Grassroots parking lot. I wonder if to look into that and see if that guy's got
I'd love
that
to see
footage.
that video again. Find that footage because I remember seeing it at Miles' shop there one time. I don't know what year it was, maybe 2007 or 8 or something
Yeah,
when I was there. Sometimes I
yeah,
stayed at your shop.
yeah,
That was one of the many things Miles kind of had. Oh yeah, look at this footage of Spider at the time. And tell me about
absolutely.
Knifehammer and Knifehammer's first show at Punkfest at Spider's, where it was,
Oh, geez.
what you were
Our
wearing.
first our first show at Punkfest was in the barn. It would have been May. It was May 24 of 2003. Um, we went, and we weren't given. We were there to play, and they wouldn't give us any and they wouldn't let us. Basically, didn't give us and any priority on the list. So all the other bands played, and then it was like everyone's done, and you know, and then it's like, so then it's like, oh, you want to play, you know, uh, so and we ended up
Please.
playing at like 7 o'clock, like Sunday morning or something.
We had the opposite
We,
experience as the persecuted. They always put us on very first. So every party, not every party, but all the big ones, it'd be like 7 o'clock on Friday night. Everyone's ready to go crazy, and here's the persecuted of all fucking bands.
I think that what happened was that it was like we showed up. It was like it was not an organized thing. We showed up, and with that original incarnation of Knifehammer, me and Miles, Buck, and Mike Brown, who was the first person. He has the honor of being the first person to quit the band. I think that Greg or whoever was, the Toronto folks basically who were running the show basically were just like, who the fuck are these people? Wow, what and
Greg
like,
Harrington.
yeah, we just, we were just sort of sloughed off to the side. So we ended up playing after at like 7 a.m. in the morning. And like, a few people were there. Someone actually came up and was like, wow, that was really different. That was cool. That was refreshing because it's different. So that was our first performance at Spiders.
Were you
Was
wearing
at
something
May
crazy?
24. I don't remember. I mean, though the formation of the band at that point was, the the waters were muddy. Let's say they were murky. I cannot say exactly what we were doing at that time. So that was 2003, and it was shortly after that that the barn burnt down.
Tell me about how the barn burnt down. I was gone. I only know sort of pieces of the story, right?
I believe someone burnt the barn down in this early summer of 2003. I believe someone started a fire, and whatever happened, yeah, the barn burnt. It burnt to the ground. Um, all sorts of stuff was lost. And that was, yeah, that was a
All
big
those old clothes that were still good.
yeah, all those old clothes. But really, really, the venue space itself, burnt to the ground.
Yeah.
So that happened. I do believe the fire. I have the impression the fire was lit intentional. Well, it was an arson that someone did that against Spider.
So how did he hook up the property up in Foymount then? That came shortly after this, of course.
Like around like 2004, he was looking around Foymount. I remember going up around that area and being up there and meeting Colin and Claire up there, and so I guess it was that point where things started moving geographically, becoming a different thing.
One of my first experiences up there was playing at the Wilno Tavern, and then
Right.
And then finding out, hey, Spider's moving here. So I think that would have been 2004 or something like that as well, when I was home for that
Yeah.
trip. The trip where, it was May 2004, that first time that the reason why I ended up playing with Ray Spoon was because I didn't make my gig the week before. And why didn't I make my gig? Because I was in jail in Montreal.
Yeah.
Anarchist Book Fair, yeah. With
Okay,
27 other people who got rounded up, and then there was just 2 of us at the end, the holdouts that got let out late on Monday afternoon. So something had happened at that time, and I ended up not coming to play my first grassroots gig, and you bumped me another 2 weeks. I ended up meeting Ray Spoon and playing with Ray there, who's been quite sick, and hope they get better. He hopped on to the side chat room there during the Jenna Memorial.
Yeah.
Because
well,
me being sober now, right? I couldn't do 50 people talking at once. Just couldn't do it. I was going through hell with the end of my relationship here. I just didn't have that kind of energy, right? So having some of you guys I just went to another room and sat there and waited, and it didn't take very long. You hopped on within 30 seconds, and then that was more the kind of chat I needed, right? A little it grounded me a little bit. Good to see buddies and that kind of thing, right? And then I checked in the other chat room and was like, blah! I was like, yeah, okay, bye everyone. And signed off. But it was really good to see everyone's faces nonetheless. I don't want to make too much editing work here. I love you so much too. And we'll do this again, and we'll pick up from what you can do is, watch the video through and then pick up from where you basically left off the next time. And I'm going to post it on the Spiderland groups and threads and try to convince, and if you see Trube or other people or you're talking to them, like convince them like, hey, let's get on board with this thing. Like, because Joey wants to write a book and I don't know how else to do it. But let's produce a bunch of interviews and find out some stories and maybe when we just have enough of this, we can actually write the definitive history of Punkfest, right? So people like Jay Young are going to be important, and he's camera shy, but
absolutely
he's going to get talking.
Yeah,
he's going to get talking. All right, brother. You take care of yourself and check in. And
it's doing good. All is well. It's great to speak with you.
It's good to speak with you.
I love you, my friend.
I never could say goodbye to you. Make it hard. Make it hard being so far away.
Yeah. Let's do this again next week.
Okay. I would. Totally.
Cool.
All right. Now that's a wrap.